Okay, so today we're going to take a deep dive into something pretty interesting. We're going to look at a conversation between Lewis Howes and Jay Shetty.
Hmm.
And they had this fascinating discussion all about mindset shifts for financial freedom.
Yes.
And I thought, we can take their conversation and kind of distill it down into some actionable advice
Yeah.
that our listeners can use to cultivate an abundant mindset no matter what their current financial situation is.
Absolutely. And one of the things I think is so interesting is we always talk about the budgeting apps and all the strategies and the best ways to invest.
Right.
But what this conversation really highlights is that none of that really matters unless you have the internal foundation.
Yeah.
Like all the external stuff, the tools and all of that, it's only going to work if you have a really solid internal foundation.
Yeah, it seems like that was a big focus of their conversation was like inner richness almost, like that precedes
Yeah.
any kind of external financial success.
100%.
So I think the core themes that I pulled out of their conversation were, first and foremost, this idea of being aware of your own relationship with money.
Yes.
And really understanding, how you feel when you receive money, when you spend money, when you just think about money.
Right.
And then also understanding your own money story and how your past has shaped your present relationship with money.
Hmm.
And then they talk about the power, generosity, and gratitude, which kind of seem counterintuitive at first, especially if you're not
Yes.
feeling financially abundant.
Absolutely.
And then also this idea of money as energy,
Yes.
which is interesting. So I think like a good place to start would be with that initial like awareness piece.
Yeah.
Because they talk about how, you really have to like take stock of your feelings when you receive money, spend money, think about money.
Yeah. And one of the things they say is notice what your body does.
Oh, interesting.
When you receive money, do your shoulders relax? Do you take a deep breath, or do you start to do you feel your chest tighten?
Mm-hmm.
Or when you spend money,
Yeah.
do you feel a sense of scarcity coming on, or do you feel abundance?
It's almost like taking an inventory of your internal landscape when it comes to money.
Yeah, like a money inventory.
Yeah, like what is your like baseline setting when
Exactly.
it comes to finances?
Exactly. And that awareness, they say, is really the first step
Okay.
to then examining, okay, what is my relationship with money?
Yeah.
Is this a healthy relationship? Is this a
Right.
good relationship, or is this a relationship fraught with stress and anxiety?
Yeah, because it's definitely not just about the numbers in your bank account.
No, not at all.
It's about your emotional
You're
relationship
feeling towards it.
with it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. And that's where they bring in this concept of the money story,
Okay.
which I find so fascinating.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
It's how our childhood experiences and how our parents interacted with money
right.
has shaped how we are today with money.
Like our money blueprint.
Yes, exactly.
So it's like nature versus nurture, but in finances.
Yeah. And a lot of it stems back to childhood. Just think about when you were a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Were money conversations tense in your household?
Yeah.
Or were they very relaxed?
Right.
Did you feel like there was always enough? Or was there always this sense of lack?
Right.
And how has that shaped you today?
Yeah. Lewis Howes actually, he had this great example.
Oh, yeah.
He talked about how, as a kid, he didn't have a lot of like the name brand things that other kids had.
Yeah.
Like the shoes and the clothes and things like that.
Yeah.
And he said that created this insecurity in him around money.
Totally. Because our brains are wired from such a young age.
Yeah. Yeah.
And those neural pathways, they start to get created based on those interactions.
Right.
And then we just carry that on into adulthood, and we don't even realize it.
Right. It's like our money attachment style.
100%.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And, they talk about money being a big source of conflict for couples.
Oh, huge. Yeah.
Yeah, it can even lead to divorce in some cases.
It's actually a very common reason why couples
Oh.
get divorced. So
So it's serious.
it is. It's a really big deal.
Yeah, and then, kind of on that same note of our past experiences affecting us, they talk about this idea of money wounds.
Yes.
And, Jay Shetty, he actually shared some of his own experiences with this. He said that he had stolen from people before and
Yeah.
he had been stolen from.
Yeah. And how those experiences
Right.
really left their mark on him
Yeah.
and how he views money.
So it's like these scars almost that you carry with you.
Emotional scars
Yeah.
around money.
And sometimes we don't even realize like how deeply they're affecting us.
And they said that the first step is just to acknowledge that they're there.
Yeah.
Because if you don't acknowledge that they're there, you can't heal them.
That's true.
Yeah.
How many people do you know that just like avoid looking at their finances?
Oh, so
Because it just brings up so much stress and anxiety.
all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like they just bury their head in the sand.
Yes. And that just perpetuates the cycle
Right.
of never having enough.
Right.
And then you add in student loans, credit card debt, all of that just compounds the
Yeah.
stress and anxiety.
Yeah, and it creates this feeling of like I'm stuck. I can't get ahead.
Yeah, you feel trapped.
Yeah.
You feel like you want more, but you can't have it.
Right.
And then you feel resentment.
It's like this never-ending cycle.
It is.
Yeah, so they talk about this idea of, needing emotional freedom first in order to have financial ease.
Yes.
And Lewis Howes had a great example of this. He said that at one point he had $1 million,
Yeah.
but he still felt broke.
Yeah, he was sleeping on friends' couches.
Yeah, he was like couch surfing with $1 million in the bank.
Yeah, because he was so afraid to lose it. He was holding on to it so tightly
Right.
that he was living in a state of scarcity,
Even though he had abundance.
even though on paper
Right.
he had abundance.
Wow, that's so interesting.
And I think one of my favorite quotes from this conversation is from Jay Shetty. He said, "The more we relax, the more we can receive."
I love that.
Isn't that good?
That's really good.
Yeah, and I think about that all the time when I get tense around money.
Right.
Like, just relax.
Yeah.
Just breathe.
Yeah, if you're constantly like stressed and anxious about money,
Yeah.
you're almost like blocking it.
Yes, you're putting up a wall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then they talk about, after you've kind of like become aware of your relationship with money and
So-
your money story, then it's time to kind of look at your mindset.
Yes.
And this idea that your beliefs really dictate your behaviors.
Yes, beliefs dictate behaviors 100%.
Yeah.
And they had some really good examples of this.
Yeah.
Jay Shetty said he had this belief that good people are poor
Oh, wow.
and that if you were going to make money, you had to do something bad.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
he really struggled to monetize his content.
Right.
Even though his content was reaching hundreds of millions of people,
Wow.
he had this block
Yeah.
around receiving money
Because of his limiting belief.
because of his limiting belief. Exactly.
Wow, that's a great example.
Yeah, and so it really prompts the listener to think about, okay, what are my limiting beliefs around money?
Right. What are those unconscious things that might be holding me back?
Yeah, are you telling yourself that rich people are bad
Mm-hmm.
or that money is evil
Right.
or, all these stories that we tell ourselves
Yeah.
that keep us from actually making money?
And they bring up this idea of generosity,
Yes.
which at first seems kind of counterintuitive,
Totally.
especially if you're not in a place of abundance.
Yeah, especially if you're feeling broke.
Right.
Yeah.
You're like, wait, I don't have enough to give.
Why would I give when I don't have enough? But they say that generosity is a mindset habit
Okay.
that unlocks wealth.
So it's like the more you give, the more you receive.
Exactly. It's
Okay.
challenging that scarcity mindset.
Okay.
Because when we're in a scarcity mindset,
Yeah.
we're always afraid to give
Right.
because we think if we give it away, then we won't have any left.
Right.
But what they're saying is that's not how it works.
Right.
The more you give, the more comes back to you.
And generosity doesn't always have to be financial.
No, not at all.
Right.
It can be generosity with your time, your
Yeah.
energy, your attention, your knowledge,
Right.
your wisdom.
Like Lewis Howes was saying, even when he didn't have a lot of money,
Yeah.
he would bring passion and curiosity
Yeah.
to his interactions with people.
Yes.
And that was his currency.
Yes. Especially for people who are burned out
Yeah.
and jaded. He was this breath of fresh air
Right.
with his energy and enthusiasm.
Yeah.
And that opened up a lot of doors for him.
And then Jay Shetty, he talked about how he used to do these interviews for NASRAQ Live.
Yeah.
And he wasn't getting paid for them, but
Yeah.
he was offering his platform
Yeah.
to other people.
Was providing value.
Yeah, he was adding value.
Yeah.
And through that,
Yeah.
he actually met Ryan Harwood
Mm-hmm.
and eventually Gary Vaynerchuk. So it's like
Yeah.
that generosity
Yeah.
led to
Open doors.
yeah, these huge opportunities.
That's not always a straight line.
Right.
But when you put that good energy out there,
Yeah.
it comes back to you.
Yeah, so it's kind of like shifting from a feeling of helplessness
Yes.
to helpfulness,
Yes, 100%.
even when you feel like you don't have a lot to give,
And they say that's the key, was to
Yeah.
be helpful.
even when you're feeling helpless.
Yes, even when you're feeling broke,
Interesting.
because it shifts your energy
Yeah.
from, I don't have enough,
Uh-huh.
to how can I provide value?
Okay.
And that's a really powerful shift.
So then they talk about gratitude.
Yes.
And I think, a lot of people talk about gratitude,
Yeah.
but they talk about it in the context of money,
Yes.
which I think is really interesting.
Yeah. And then they quote Jay Shetty says, Gratitude and generosity is the gateway to abundance.
I love that.
Isn't that good?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like you need both.
Okay.
You need the generosity and you need the gratitude.
And that opens the door.
And that opens this door
to abundance.
to abundance.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they also talk about this idea of money as energy,
Right.
which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
It's not just these, inert numbers in your bank account. It's energy.
Yeah.
And how we think and how we feel about money dictates the energy we have towards it.
Right.
It dictates how we interact with it.
Right. So if you're constantly thinking about money from a place of fear
Yeah.
or scarcity,
Or lack.
then that's the energy.
That's the energy you're putting out there.
Because you're putting out. Right. And so they bring up this guy named Ken Honda,
Yes.
and he has this practice of saying thank you to money.
I love that.
Yeah.
So when he receives money, he says thank you.
Uh-huh.
And when he spends money, he says thank you.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's just this way of like acknowledging the role that money is playing in your life.
Right.
And it's a way of fostering a more mindful and
Yeah.
respectful relationship with it.
It's almost like treating money like a person.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
Like you would thank a person for giving you something.
Right.
You would thank money for coming into your life.
Right. And then you would thank it for going out and doing its job.
Yes.
Interesting.
And it shifts your perspective
Okay.
from one of anxiety and potential loss
Mm-hmm.
to one of appreciation and
Right.
flow.
And it kind of goes back to that point earlier
Yeah.
about, just having a high net worth doesn't necessarily mean that you're abundant.
Not at all.
If you're still stressed and anxious all the time.
Yeah, because you can be a millionaire and still feel broke.
Right.
It's really about your internal state. It's
Yeah.
about feeling abundant and at peace.
Yeah, it's about feeling free.
Yeah.
So they talk about manifestation,
Yes.
which, it's kind of a trendy topic.
It is a buzzword.
Yeah, it can be a little woo-woo for some people.
Yeah.
But Lewis Howes, he shared a story about how he was doing this affirmation.
Yeah.
And it was, money comes to me abundantly and freely, and I see it everywhere.
Yeah.
And he was saying this affirmation,
Mm-hmm.
and then he found this wheat penny
Yeah.
on the ground.
And it could be worth a lot of money.
Yeah, potentially worth a lot of money. It's
Yeah.
pretty amazing.
Yeah.
But the takeaway from that story wasn't just about saying affirmations and then money magically appears.
No.
It was about being open to the possibilities
Yes.
and then taking action.
Yes.
He saw the penny and he picked it up.
Exactly.
So it's about being aware
Yeah.
of the opportunity.
And taking action.
Yeah, and taking action.
Yeah.
And that's a key part of manifestation.
100%.
It's not just about thinking positive thoughts. It's
Yeah.
about aligning your actions
Yeah.
with your intentions.
And to be intentional with your energy.
And they say that, it's important to ask for help
Mhm.
when you need it
Yeah.
and to put yourself out there.
Yes. Be willing to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Be willing to take risks.
Jay Shetty talked about how, when he was first starting out, he was offering his skills.
Yeah.
He was doing editing
Yeah.
and social media management for people.
Mhm.
And that was his way of
Yeah.
generating income.
Yeah. He was taking action.
Yeah.
He was putting himself out there.
Right.
He was providing value.
So it's about taking those initial steps.
Yes.
And then also they talk about investing in yourself,
Yes.
which is something that, a lot of people,
Overlook.
yeah, they want to invest in
The stock market,
yeah.
cryptocurrency,
Right. But they don't think about investing in themselves.
in themselves.
And that's the most important investment.
100%. Because when you invest in yourself, you're investing in your skills,
Yeah.
your knowledge,
Yeah.
your confidence,
Your growth.
your growth, and that's what's going to pay off
Right.
in the long run.
It's you're building that foundation.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're building that solid internal foundation.
And this is a really good counterpoint to that whole make money quick mentality.
Yes.
Lewis Howes actually admitted that he's lost money
Yeah.
in the past.
Chasing those quick schemes.
Yeah, chasing get rich quick schemes.
Yeah.
So, it's a good reminder that there's
Yeah.
no such thing as easy money.
There are no shortcuts.
Yeah.
It takes time.
Right.
It takes effort.
It takes consistency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it takes a willingness to learn
Right.
and to grow.
And they had a good distinction between making money quick and making money easy. And they said, don't try to make money quick,
Yeah.
but you can work towards making money easy.
And they use Jay Shetty as an example.
Right.
He's put in the work.
Yeah.
He's built his platform.
Right.
He's developed his skills.
Right.
And now making money is easier for him.
Because he has that foundation.
because he has that foundation and he's built that trust with his
Oh, yeah.
audience.
And then they talk about, not investing in things that you don't understand.
Yes.
And having respect for the industry.
Yeah, do your research.
Yeah.
Don't just jump into something blindly,
Right.
because there's so much out there right now,
Yeah.
like cryptocurrency and NFTs and
All these different things.
all these different things.
Yeah. And it's easy to get caught up in the hype.
Yeah.
But if you don't actually understand what you're investing in,
You're going to lose money.
yeah, you're setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah.
And then they talk about spending versus saving. And they say that, it's important to live beneath your means.
Yes.
But you can still feel abundant
Yes.
while doing that.
It's not about deprivation.
Right.
It's about conscious spending.
Okay.
It's about being mindful
Right.
of where your money is going.
And not feeling like you have to keep up with the Joneses.
Yes.
Right. Especially with social media.
Oh my gosh. Social media is the worst
It's so bad.
for making us feel like we don't have enough.
Right. It's constantly bombarding us with ads and
Yeah.
people showing off their lavish lifestyles.
Yeah. And it's all fake.
Right.
It's all curated.
Right.
It's not real life.
So it's important to remember that
Yeah.
and to appreciate what you have.
Yes. And to find joy
Yeah.
in the simple things.
And to save and invest for the future
Yeah.
so that you can have that financial freedom
Yeah.
down the line.
Long-term vision.
Yeah.
Not short-term gratification.
And then they circle back to generosity.
Yes. Yeah.
And they give some really great examples of how generosity can actually lead to abundance.
Yeah.
There was this one story about a hostess.
Oh, yeah. She was so enthusiastic.
Yeah, she was so enthusiastic and passionate about her job.
Man, people loved her.
And she ended up getting like multiple job offers.
Yeah, just from her energy.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And then they talk about this research on waiter tipping.
Yeah.
And they said that waiters who introduce themselves and make recommendations
Yeah.
get higher tips.
Yeah.
Which is so interesting.
Yeah, just that little bit of extra effort
Yeah.
goes a long way.
It's all about like human connection and positive energy.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then Jay Shetty, he talked about his parents
Yeah.
and how they were always very generous,
Yeah.
even when they didn't have a lot of money.
Even when they were struggling,
Yeah,
they always found a way to give back to their community.
which is amazing.
Yeah, and I think that's such a powerful example because it shows that generosity is not about how much money you have.
Right,
It's about your mindset.
right.
It's about your heart.
And so they kind of come to this conclusion that generosity is actually like a key ingredient
Yes.
to abundance.
100%.
And that even when it feels uncomfortable to
Yeah.
give,
When you feel like you don't have enough,
yeah.
that's when it's most important to
Oh,
give.
wow.
Yeah, because it shifts your energy
Right.
from scarcity to abundance.
So just to recap, I mean, that was a lot of information.
We covered a lot.
We covered a lot. But just to kind of bring it all together,
Yeah.
what are some of the key takeaways?
So I think one of the biggest takeaways is awareness,
Right.
being aware of your relationship with money,
Yeah.
your money story.
Your money blueprint.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Understanding where you're at.
Right.
And then from there, you can start to shift your mindset.
Right.
And one of the biggest mindset shifts is generosity and gratitude.
Right.
Cultivating those two things
Yeah.
is so important.
And then also taking action.
Yes.
Not just sitting around waiting for things to happen.
Not just thinking positive thoughts.
Right. But actually like putting yourself out there,
Yes.
asking for help, taking risks,
Yeah.
and then also remembering that, this is a long game.
Yes.
It's not about getting rich quick.
There are no shortcuts.
Yeah.
It takes time.
Consistency effort.
Yeah. And it takes a solid internal foundation.
So it seems like the overall message is that it's really about cultivating that internal abundance first.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then the external abundance will follow.
So to leave our listeners with a little something to ponder,
Mm-hmm.
I want you to just take a moment and think about your current relationship with money.
Yeah.
If money were a person,
Ooh. I like that.
how would it describe you?
Yeah. How would it describe your interactions with it?
Yeah. And then what's one small shift that you can make today to start fostering a more positive and abundant connection
I love that.
with money?
That's a great takeaway.
Yeah.